On this week's show, should I buy property through a limited company?
In the news, who should pay stamp duty, the buyer or the seller?
And we're going to be answering all your property-related questions. Welcome to the Property Investors Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an upload. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. Enjoy this week's show and don't forget to share it with all your friends.
Hi, I'm Russell Leeds. I'm Alistair Cunningham.
And welcome to the Property Investors Podcast. We've got a great show. We're going to be talking about whether or not you should buy property in your own name or through a limited company. And on the news, we're going to be looking at stamp duty. There's talk at the moment of them switching it from the buyer to the seller, so we're going to be delving into that as well. You've just got back.
Literally just got back from Cyprus.
When was like
this
last
morning.
night? This
Yeah,
morning?
It was like 6 o'clock this morning.
Wow.
So today I have collected the keys for my new apartment.
What holiday, apartment?
Yeah.
I've never been to Cyprus.
Well, I've been a few times actually, but this wasn't really a holiday. It was more of a work thing. So, but it's fun.
What we do?
It's just a training event. So
Okay. You enjoy it?
It was all right. I had a little bit of time either side, so like half a day and a day either side, so it was fine. Sat by a pool.
Nice.
Sat by a pool all day, literally yesterday, so it's cool.
Brilliant, man.
Flew
That's
home.
good. And so tell us about. So you moved in. We've both moved. We're here in London. So
Yep.
we've moved. This is one of the rooms in our new offices.
Yeah,
Which is cool.
it's cool.
I actually, yesterday was my first, because I had the week off to move house and everything last week, so yesterday was the first day of me coming back into the office.
How was the commute?
The commute the train was 23 minutes,
Right.
which is pretty good. I do have a mile either side of the train. So at the moment, I'm just walking that,
Okay,
which means I'm doing 4 miles walking a day.
that's good.
It's good, but it's quite long.
Yeah,
I quite like it for listening to my audiobooks, because
Yeah.
it takes me like an hour to get in a 20-minute walk, 23-minute train, 20-minute walk. So it's good for that. But I've just bought one of those folding bikes.
what one of those like little clown bikes, little ones you fold up?
Well, it's not a clown bike.
Yeah, but there's the one that's like you literally pull a string and it.
You don't pull a string. I don't know how it works. I ordered it online, so I'll be.
How
fine.
much was it?
250 quid.
Oh, was that all? I thought they
Yeah.
were like mega money.
No.
So
I bought a cheap one to start with because I thought if
You know when you're on the train and some knobhead gets on my bike? That's going to be
that's the thing though. It folds up to about this big.
Does it really?
It folds up to the size of the wheel, so it's like 20 inches.
How
and
can it do
folds
that?
around. It all folds around the wheel. It's wider than the wheel.
Yeah, obviously.
But it all
yeah.
folds around the wheel. So yeah, it's pretty small. Because I realised, because I've obviously got a bike.
Yeah.
Don't use it, but I've got a bike. But you're not allowed to take the train on the bike between 7 and 10.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I wouldn't have been able to take it on anyway.
So you can bring this one on.
This one you can.
It's just
a
like
folding bike you can bring on.
It's just like a carry case, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Are you going to be all right putting it together? Like I know you're not very, very hands-on.
I've paid them to do it for
You
me.
paid them to do it, but even like lifting it up and putting it down. Is it going to be like a man trying to put a pushchare down? Like,
When I go to the shop, I'm going to get them to teach me how to do it.
Scratching your head.
No, I'm going to get them to teach me how to do it. So yeah, but yeah, it was all right. Commute's pretty good.
Cool, man.
Pretty good commuting. And my house is awesome.
Yeah.
But you've got a.
Where's yours? Yours is Beaconsfield.
No, Beaconsfield.
Why do I think Beaconsfield? Where's Beaconsfield?
I've never heard of Beaconsfield.
I
think you're
went
making
through
it up.
that. Oh no, I went through that Beaconsfield on the underground the other day. Anyway, Beaconsfield.
Well, it is spelt Beaconsfield.
Yeah.
So it might be that you're getting it mixed up.
Okay. So yeah, cool. What's it like? How many bedrooms?
6.
Okay. Nice.
Very nice.
Big garden.
Yeah. Very nice house.
Sweet. I'll have to come up and have a look.
I look forward to seeing your house.
Yeah, well, it's an apartment. So I've just got the keys this morning. 2-bed apartment in Kilburn, which is literally, you come out the door, 10 yards, you're in an underground station. And it's only 4 or 5 stops to where I need to be for work. So it's all good. Perfect. It's really good. And I've got underground car park. So I've got a little gated, drive up the gate, it opens.
No, I've got that.
You go in and...
but mine's a private gate.
Okay.
Just for me.
Just for you.
Not
okay.
And my family.
Okay, that's cool. So mine's just for mine and a few other families. But have you got a swimming pool?
No.
I have.
Is it just for you?
No.
Well, I could go to the local leisure centre and I've got a
but
swimming pool.
mine's is downstairs. Literally, I go to the elevator, go to 0 level -1, and there I've got a full gym and swimming pool. And it's actually a nice swimming pool. I thought it'd be a bit like ropey. Like, do you know, like when you go to one of these rubbish hotels and it's got like a mediocre swimming pool? It's a bit ropey. I thought it'd be like that, but
What do you mean by road? Do you mean like grimy? And that?
grimy and dirty and a bit like you wouldn't actually want to go in it.
Yeah, but you've got a really nice high-end apartment. It's not going to be like that.
It's nice. It's actually really nice. It's clean. There's somebody in there There's somebody works in there every day, just keeping it clean and keeping it presentable.
Nice.
And it's really nice. And the water is heated as well, so it's not freezing cold water, so it's good. So yeah, I'll be making use of that.
Beautiful, man. Well, it's exciting. We'll have to. I look forward to seeing yours, and you can
Absolutely.
I look forward to showing you mine.
Absolutely. I'll show you yours if you show me mine, or whatever. I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
Okay, so on this week's show, first thing was buying a property. Should you buy in a limited company? Like I know that you all get this. I get it all the time, especially at the Property Investors Crash Course.
Yeah.
People come over to me. Should I buy in a company?
Yeah.
Should I not? What do you do?
Problem is, for us to just give a blanket answer it's not really possible, because you need to take into consideration their personal tax affairs.
Well, the thing is, it's quite a complicated question. It's not a straight yes you should, no you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it involves a bit of digging into, a bit of explaining. That's obviously what we're going to be doing on the show today. So hopefully, if you're watching this, make notes and we'll go through the pros and the cons. That's the thing. It's a pros and cons.
Yeah.
It's not an obvious necessarily answer.
But fundamentally, I think we need to make it very clear from the offset that this is not tax advice. We need to make it clear from the offset that you do need to speak to an individual tax advisor about your personal circumstances. This is just an overview of the pros and cons. Yeah.
Generic advice, yeah. Okay, cool. So let's start off. I suppose the first thing you've got to take into account is what kind of property investment are you planning on doing? Mm-hmm. So there's sort of two types really. You've got buying to make money out of the rent.
Right, okay.
Your normal type of investing,
Yeah.
or like for HMO or for serviced accommodation or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you've got buying to flip, or like a buy, refurbish, refinance. So if you're doing buy, refurbish, refinance, buying to flip, buying to add value and then sell on, it pretty much always makes sense to buy in a limited company.
Right, okay.
Reason being is that corporation tax, which you will pay, any profit that you make is corporation tax, is usually lower for you than if you're paying income tax. So if you buy it in your own name, you're going to pay income tax on it. If you buy it for a company, it'll be corporation tax. So right now, as of this filming, here are your rates. Corporation tax is 19%.
Yep.
Basic income tax, so like up to 50 grand, if you're earning less than 50 grand, is 20%.
Yeah.
So even if you're a basic income tax payer, it's still better to buy it through a company. However, this is where the kick comes in. For people like Alistair, who is on a higher rate tax, 50 to 150 grand is 40%.
Yeah.
And 150 plus 45%. So suddenly, if you're earning decent money,
you're getting crippled, didn't you?
Yeah.
So the corporation tax is at 19% across the board, all the way up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I knew it was, but I just wanted you to clarify that just for the listeners and the viewers.
So 19% across the board, anything that you earn.
Yeah.
So really, if you're buying to flip, I probably would say normally, again, not tax advice, but normally you're going to buy it through a limited company. Right. Now, that aside, most property investors are not doing that.
Yeah.
Most property investors are buying to keep, yeah? So let's have a look at the pros and cons. From my opinion, there are two main pros of buying through a limited company. Both are tax related. Okay. So the first one is kind of similar to what we just said about corporation tax versus income tax. Mm-hmm. Corporation tax is obviously less, yeah? So if you buy through a limited company, the rental income that you earn is classed as profit to the company. Yeah. So it's corporate, so you pay corporation tax on it, not as profit to you as an individual, which is income tax. Mm-hmm. So let's say you bought a house and you were earning I don't know, 500 quid a month rent from that house. You'd be paying that at a lower rate if you're buying for a company than if you were adding it onto your salary and paying it as income tax. So it kind of makes sense straight away. That's the first reason, less tax. Now, here's the real kicker. And this is the thing that really makes a big difference. This hasn't fully come in yet, but this comes in 2020, I believe. So it's coming in soon. It's being staged in. And you'll this is the main reason that we both invest in limited companies. And that is this. You can't claim the interest on the mortgage. So most mortgages, it's mostly, a lot of it's interest, isn't it?
Most of it. Especially because most people are doing property investing are doing interest-only mortgages as well. So
Okay. So give us an example of how this would affect you. And explain. Because I've been doing a lot of talking. Or do you want me to?
Okay. One of my properties, for instance, my mortgage payments are £253.
Yep.
But it's purely interest. So I wouldn't be able to reclaim that £253 if I'm buying it in my personal name.
Now this is crazy because this is nuts, right? Let's say your mortgage payments are £400 a month.
Yeah.
And your rent is £450 a month.
Yeah.
So how much profit are you making?
Yeah, 50 quid.
50 quid. So you should pay tax on the 50 quid.
Yeah.
But you can't because you can't claim the tax back on the interest payments. It's not counted as a tax deductible expense.
And they should do it for a limited company.
So it means that you're earning 50 quid, but you're paying 20% tax.
So you're paying £80 on tax. So you're actually paying out 80 quid more.
You're paying 30 quid more, and that's if you're on 20% tax. If you're higher rate tax, you're paying like 160 quid. So you're earning 50 quid, you're paying £160 tax.
Yeah, so if you're earning 50 quid, you're paying, you'll be paying £80. So you're actually £30 worse off every month.
But that isn't out of 20%.
That's at 20%.
Well, what about if you're a 40% taxpayer?
That's a lot.
Or a 45%
This is why you're
taxpayer.
seeing landlords that have got old school landlords that bought everything in their personal names are selling their portfolios.
Well, they're suddenly screwed because they've gone from making a small profit on each to making a massive loss
and losing and actually having to put money into it every month. I know one landlord that's selling 23 properties because the new tax changes.
Yeah.
Because he says I'm not having it, and for him to convert the properties from a personal name into a limited company is not efficient. It's not financially viable. I don't know the process. That's a question I get asked a lot. People that have bought properties in the personal names, they now want to flip them to a limited company.
I think you've pretty much got to sell it to yourself.
I was going to say, because you're selling it. A sale's got to take place at some point, hasn't it? So you've got stamp duty, you've got tax benefits, tax implications as well, because obviously if you're selling it and you're making a profit, there's tax. It's just a minefield. Yeah. That's why we say you need to speak to a proper accountant.
Now here's the thing though, right? That is terrible news. That only applies if you own the property as an individual.
Yeah.
So if you own the property as a limited company, then you can put the interest in.
Yeah, but you can't get a mortgage for a new limited company's name.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, no, you can. I was being sarcastic. People think that though. People think that it's very difficult to get a mortgage as a new limited company set up there. All right,
I just spilled my water.
People think that you, as a new limited company, you cannot get a mortgage. Now, I'm not saying you can get it the same day, but there is companies out there will do it if you act as a personal guarantor.
Well, you've pretty much got to, yeah. You've pretty much got to.
But if you can do a fresh limited company with no trading history, as long as you're a guarantor.
Because basically what it is it's really a personal mortgage with a wrapped up as a limited company mortgage, so that you can get these tax benefits.
Yeah,
basically.
Absolutely.
So they're the big two, right? Cheaper tax rates, and you can claim the interest on the mortgage as a tax deductible expense. Now that could be deal breaker massive. So you're looking at that, you're thinking, well, why are they saying it depends?
Yeah.
Because it's a freaking no-brainer. You're going to buy it for a limited company. There are the advantages. Let me tell you the disadvantages. There are three. Okay. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Whose opinion? My opinion.
Yours,
okay. Not tax advice. My opinion. Number one, the mortgage rates are a bit higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. So looking at it on average, you're looking at about 1% more.
Yeah.
So if it's say 3% or 3.5% for an individual mortgage, you're looking at 4.5, right? Which means on a £100,000 mortgage, let's say you're paying 3%, an individual, that'd be £135 a month.
Yeah.
Whereas for a limited company, you're looking at about £181 a month, right? So the repayments are it's not mega, but it is a little bit higher. That's the first disadvantage. Disadvantage number two, go on.
Just quickly before you go back.
Yeah.
The mortgages, they're not as it's much easier to get a mortgage in a personal name than it is in a limited company. I'm not saying it's not impossible. It's just it's easier. The scope of lenders is much bigger for personal as opposed to limited. So
it's less so than it used to be.
Yeah,
it used to be. I agree with you. You are correct, but it used to be like, let's say, here
Yeah.
is the amount. It's kind of gone like that. So
Yeah,
it is easier than it used to be,
Yeah.
and I think it's going more and more that way as well.
Yeah, I do as
because
well.
more and more people nowadays are buying through limited companies because of these
100%.
tax reasons. So
And mortgage and lenders have opened up to doing more limited company
supply
work.
and demand, isn't it? Supply
Absolutely.
and demand, right? So, but you are correct. It is a bit easier. There are more lenders doing individual.
But it is a
mortgages.
disadvantage that it does take a little bit longer to get a limited company mortgage.
Yeah. Number 2. Now here's a big one as well, because this is where it very much comes to the what we talk about. It depends. It very much depends on what you want to do with the money.
Yeah.
Right, because
This is something I've come up against.
if, let's say you buy through a limited company and your plan is to save the money and then buy another property, brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant.
Makes
no-brainer.
sense.
Yeah.
If you're trying to create a passive income to live off and it's your only source of income, then you get taxed twice. Because you get taxed the 19% on the corporation tax, but then to get the hold of the money, you've got to take it out as a dividend or income tax or whatever, and you get taxed again. Yeah. So what you want to do with that money is a massive factor on whether you should buy as an individual or buy through a limited company, because you potentially could be getting taxed twice.
Yeah.
So something to bear in mind. And the final disadvantage, just another small one. That's the main one, really.
Yeah, that's
what you want to do with the money.
Yeah.
Number 3, you're gonna have to do company accounts. You're gonna have to get, you have to set up a limited company. It's very easy, but you will have to set up a limited company. You have to pay for an accountant and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but that's just part of the running costs. I mean, you can get an accountant who will do your books for like £700 a year or something like that. It's not that expensive.
Yeah.
And if it's going to save you all that money, it's definitely well worth it.
Yeah. So bottom line, it does very much depend.
Yeah. But bottom line, speak to a proper tax expert and lay your cards out on the table. This is your situation. Be honest with what you want to do with the money as well, because you cannot just sort of willy-nilly take money out of a limited company just for your living expenses.
No,
you can't.
No, you can't. So it does very much depend on what you want to do. If you plan to live off let's say you plan to live off the money, and it's your only source of income, which means you get your first £12,500 tax free anyway.
Yeah.
So it's your only source of income, and you only want to buy 2 properties, then buy as an individual.
Yeah, because you're not going to experience. Yeah, I agree with you.
But if you're earning 50 grand a year and you want to build a large portfolio and you want to put that money into other properties, then it's a no-brainer to buy it through a company.
Yeah.
So it does depend a little bit on your situation. Personally, for me, I mean, I run other businesses. I don't just make my money so it just makes sense.
Makes sense, 100%.
To buy it for a limited company. I would be crazy not to.
Yeah.
I know you buy for a limited company as well. And my usual rule of thumb is it is better to buy through a limited company in my head.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think.
I agree with you. For me, it's a no-brainer. When everyone says to me, how should I do it, I can't give them advice on their situation, but I will say, look, I will only do everything I do will be in a limited company, everything.
So what questions should they be asking themselves when they're making
What do they want to
decision?
use the money for?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. How is it going to affect their current personal taxes? Because obviously you got to differentiate from personal tax and business tax.
Yeah.
They're two very different things. So you need to know how you buying property is going to affect your personal tax affairs, and this is where you have to lay your cards out on the table with a proper accountant, speak to them, tell them exactly what you plan to do, exactly what you plan to do with the money, your current situation, your current income, your current assets, and see what's best for you.
How much do you want to buy?
Yeah.
What are you earning currently?
Yeah, and how much you want to take out of the business as well.
Yeah, what do you want to do with the money?
If you only want a little bit out of it, that's different to if you want all of it. It depends. I personally would reinvest it. I would take as minimal out as possible and just reinvest.
Well, that's what we teach, isn't it?
Yep.
We teach to anything you save 10% of everything you earn.
It does raise a question, though, that if you reinvest, there does come a point where you're going to want that money. So
why?
Well, what's the point then? There's going to come a point where you can have all the assets in the world, and them assets are creating cash flow, but then at some point, what are you going to do with all that? Are you going to pass it down the line to your children, or leave it as inheritance, or what are you going to do with that? At some point, it has to be realised, and it has to be
talking
sold.
about inheritance as well.
That's a whole minefield, inheritance.
It is a minefield. I'm not going to go into it, but what I will tell you, which is what I've been told from my tax advisor, is that you want to own it. If you want to pass it on,
Yeah.
there are lots of clever things you can do if it's a limited company that you can't do if you own it yourself. So there's another small advantage right there to my inheritance.
Cool.
But yeah, because you want to. Why would you? I mean, if you, for me, the moment that you go, that's enough now, I'm going to take the money, you've given up on yourself.
Yeah, no, not necessarily, because no.
Just take a higher wage then, take a wage out of it and carry on investing.
Okay, but the wage, this is what I mean, you're going to want to take some money out of it.
Of course you are.
So that obviously depends on the tax. But
if you manage to grow such a big portfolio, then you don't care about tax, are you?
No, I agree with you. I agree
with
with you. You shouldn't let tax put you off doing anything, because
The worst thing I ever hear,
I know
VAT.
you're gonna say VAT.
Oh,
don't want
my
to get VAT
God.
registered. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, I know.
What? You're holding back your business,
Yeah.
so you don't pay VAT, you idiot.
You moron. Sorry, bleep that out. Bleep that out, Nick. You moron. Yeah.
Nothing annoys me more than that.
I hear it all the
I don't want to
time.
become VAT registered. Because what? How small-minded is that?
Yeah, and I would rather go massive and just hit the thresholds, be VAT registered, pay what you owe. It's not difficult, because if you're earning it, you can pay it.
Yeah.
Right? But don't get me started about that VAT thing. It's arguments I have with people all the time. I can't deal with them. I can't deal with the small-minded, and the lack of desire. It's just crazy.
It beggars belief for me.
Yeah, I know. It's just.
Sure.
Curious.
Like if you can do something creative to keep them cool, but don't sit there and go, "Oh, I need to earn," because that basically means what is it now? 80 grand.
84,000.
84,000.
Last time I heard it was 84.
Right. So what you're doing is you're saying, I want to grow a business that's never going to make more than 84.
The reality is, think about it. If you've got a business that's turning over 84 grand. It's very likely you're not going to be making much money.
No.
Because when you factor in costs...
You certainly won't be able to have staff.
No.
It's just ridiculous.
So small-minded.
It's stupidest thing I've ever heard. If
I
you say that, you're an idiot.
Yeah, you're an idiot if you say that. I'm sorry, you are. I genuinely know somebody who only works 3 days a week, so he doesn't have to become VAT registered. And
it beggars belief.
He only wants to do 3 days a week. He wants to do more and he wants to earn more money, but he's so scared of being VAT registered that he doesn't want to do it. But I'm like, well, you do know you charge that VAT on? And he's like, yeah, but then customers won't like it and then they might leave me and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, good.
Yeah, but then you can't grow.
You can't grow.
That's another problem.
The customers might leave, but you'll get better ones that will pay your money. But anyway, small-mindedness, let's move on.
Right, okay. So it's now time for this. So in the news, Chancellor Sajid Javid has denied a report that he was considering shifting responsibility for tax duty from the buyers to the sellers. So there was a lot of talk about it's switching.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Do you think it'd be a good idea or a bad idea?
So currently, obviously, if you're buying the property, one of the costs are stamp duty if it's an eligible property. Now, I know why they're doing it. They're trying to make it so the costs are lower for people to buy houses, because then that would stimulate the markets. That would mean it makes it more affordable for people to move house, especially when you talk about some of the higher end houses. The stamp duties on them are very like a large sum of money. So maybe that's one way they're thinking of trying to stimulate house
wouldn't
buyers.
The sellers just put the price up?
Maybe, but with that, I don't know if that would work or not, because obviously if the price has gone up and it's not valued at that, technically it's going to be undervalued, isn't it? So it comes down to the mortgage valuation. But I think moving it on to the seller, I don't know if
I just think all the sellers would just put the prices up. And then
but they can't do that, can they? Because
they can if they all do it. If everyone puts the prices up, which I would if I was selling a house, suddenly I'd be thinking, but I suppose they probably don't mind that because then they get more stamp duty. So actually, if everyone put the houses up...
That's a good point, actually, yeah. If all the houses went up, and then but all the stamp duties will go up. So it's just fundamentally, who gets more money?
The government.
The government, yeah. The government are not idiots, right? They probably realise that's what will happen. That the sellers will put the price, they'll put the price up to accommodate the stamp duty that they've got to then pay. But ultimately, if they put the price up and it goes across a different bracket, and then they're going to get more stamp duty. I don't know. I'm not sure if I agree with it or not. If I was a seller of a house...
You're not though, are you? We're buyers, aren't we?
Yeah, we're buyers.
Mostly.
So from us, I'm not.
We are sellers, but we're more buyers than we are sellers.
I'm from a buyer's point of view, it's very good because it's less cost when moving house. less
and if
cost
the
on
price
buying.
goes up, it just goes into your mortgage.
It just goes into the mortgage, so it's
So
only a
from a
monthly payment,
property-
isn't it?
So from a property investor point of view, it's probably quite good.
Yeah, less cash in. Your ROI would be better because obviously less cash in. From a seller point of view, obviously they're not going to be overly happy about it. But
most people that are
let's face it, the government are just constantly trying to batter us with something over tax, aren't they? So you sell something, you make a bit of profit, and they're going to charge you even more money.
yeah.
What's the average stamp duty? I don't know. How much is it? £4,000 or £5,000 for it varies, I know, but like
Could be like 100 grand, couldn't it?
yeah, okay, on a £200,000 house, what's the stamp duty?
Would you work it out?
If you don't mind, I've got an app actually.
Have you?
I might have deleted it. It's on my old phone, but let me just double check. I did have an app that told me, because obviously it depends on things such as if it's your first, second, or third home and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, stamp duty calculator. There's one on the
Go on. So
there's a website called stampdutycalculator.org.uk.
Yeah, I downloaded an app.
So single property.
Yeah, so let's just say 200 grand.
Oops, 2 million. That's a bit much. Calculate 1,500 quid.
Okay, so now click as if
That's on
it's-
your first.
If it's your second home,
If it's your second
because the
home,
percentages change.
200 grand. I did think that seemed a bit low. 7,500.
Yeah, so look at that. Right, so 7.5 grand for an average property price in the UK, which is what is going to be shifted to the seller if the government have their way. That's a big saving for somebody looking to buy a house, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're looking to buy a house, whether it be for an investment or as a residential, it's a big investment, it's a big purchase, and if you can reduce that a little bit, then happy days.
If you're a first-time buyer, it's free.
Yeah, happy days. First time buyer, free, happy days. But I don't know. From a seller point of view, it's brilliant. And from a buyer point of view, it's brilliant. From a seller point of view, not very good. But we're buyers, so.
So I wonder how that would work. Like if you were a seller, because then you wouldn't. If you sell it to a property investor, is it higher than if you sell it to a first-time buyer? How would that work? Or if you own...
That's a good point. You know, if the seller has to pay it, they might prefer first-time buyers. Or people that have only got one house. They might then discriminate against people that are investors that have got multiple houses.
Although we're reading into this, they've just announced it's not going to happen.
Oh.
So it's kind of a pointless debate.
No, it's not. It's still interesting. I think it's interesting.
Do you think it's still interesting? Comment below.
It's very interesting. I think it's really interesting.
No,
it's just
it's not changing. It's staying as it is. Don't worry about it. Sorry, Nick. I banged the table. Can I bang it ever? What if I'm angry? I'm angry.
It's just another stick the government can smack somebody with, isn't it? So.
A bit like a TV screen for Elliot.
Yeah, true story, right? In our customer service department upstairs.
It doesn't matter. It's now time for this.
No, it's interesting.
Okay, so it's now time for our questions and answers. If you want to ask us a question, then either drop a comment in the YouTube video and we'll answer the ones we can, or if you join the Property Investors with Samuel Leeds Facebook group, we do a live video on there where we invite people to ask questions, and here are some of the questions from there. So first, from Ryan Daniel Joseph. Hey Ryan, do you need a lot of money to do rent-to-rent? No.
Technically, rent-to-rent is a low money down strategy, so it's for somebody that doesn't really have a lot of money to invest in property. So,
a few tips to keep it really low for you. A couple of tips. Number one, use a deposit scheme rather than paying a deposit, which means you've only got to pay about 1 week's rent.
It's 1 week rent, yeah, but you don't get that back. It's not technically a deposit.
Number two, rent the furniture. Find one that's furnished, actually, would be even better. But if you can't find one that's furnished, then rent the furniture rather than buying it. And rule number three, negotiate. You could negotiate no deposit.
So if the property needs a little bit of work doing to it, like a little bit of a refresh, use that as negotiation skills. So say, look, I'll paint the house, which you can do for very cheaply, maybe £300-400 if you do it yourself. I'll paint the house if you can give me like no deposit or a month rent free.
I've managed to negotiate ones where I've put nothing down.
Yeah, everyone I've done, I've never put a deposit in, never.
But like it's like fully furnished.
Yeah.
So you can technically
do it. Oxford was no deposit and 6 weeks.
And as long as you've got a contract, you don't need a solicitor to draw the contract up.
No.
So you don't even need to pay solicitor fees. So yes, you basically can do it for pretty much free. Next question is from Charlie Wakely. Can you explain the pros and cons of interest-only versus capital repayment mortgages? So pros and cons of interest-only versus capital appreciation. Well, okay. Big pro of capital repayments that you're buying the property.
Yeah, you're paying some of the capital off.
However, nearly all mine are interest only, and the reason for that is I'd rather use the cash to buy another property rather than paying off the mortgage on the one. So
I don't know many property investors that buy with capital repayment. Most of them that I know of, they use interest only. So interest only, obviously you're only paying interest on the mortgage payments. You're not actually paying any of the capital of the property off. But we're sort of banking on the property increasing in value over time, or you saving up a bit of money to pay the capital off when it's due. Obviously capital repayment, you're paying capital off the mortgage, so you are paying down that mortgage. It depends on what you want for your long-term goals. I do interest only, you do interest only, Samuel does interest only, so that's what we do.
There you go. But we also rent where we live, which seems to cause controversy everywhere we go.
Do you know that created a bit of an issue last week?
Next, a lot of echo in that room, guys. Is there? There.
Really? Who was that from? Joshua
boys.
Joshua.
Although someone else, maybe there is. What's it sound like to you, Nick? I mean, you're watching it live, so I'm guessing it is echoey. Sorry, guys.
Apology, guys. Just imagine you're driving through the tunnels in the Swedish Alps, and you're on your way to a nice skiing trip, and you're listening to us. Move on.
I will. Quickly. Hey guys, love the podcast and the banter you guys give. What are your top tips to get agents to know, like, and trust you? And how often should you touch base with an agent? Thanks in advance from Ethan Clayton.
Can I do that? Because I deal with a lot of estate agents.
Go on.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So, know, like, and trust. Ethan Clayton, have you been to one of the events that I say that? Because I say that a lot from stage. You've got to get people to know, like, and trust you if you want to do business with them. And by doing that, you just literally, you have to be a nice guy or lady. You have to turn up on time, do what you say you're going to do, and just do everything right. So instead of just calling an estate agent up and bombarding them on the phone with the same questions they get every single day from every single other person that rings them, make the effort and go to your chosen area and go in and see them. Actually, try and have a face-to-face meeting with them. You'll get a lot further than phoning them up. Now, the phone-up strategy does work. We teach that, and we do advise that. But when you've got your defined area, actually get your feet on the ground, get out there and get meeting agents. And if you have a viewing, for instance, if you have a viewing at 9 o'clock, what time are you going to turn up? I asked that question, what time are you going to turn up? I always turn up early.
No one's going to say 9:15, are they?
No, but believe me, honestly, the amount of people that book appointments and don't turn up on time. How many times do we have meetings booked with people that are coming into our office and they don't turn up on time?
We get that sometimes, don't we, Nick?
Yeah, they get it. But my point being is, look, if you say you're going to do something, do it. The estate agent's time is just as important as yours. So if you say you're going to be somewhere on time, be there on time.
Mm-hmm. Johnny Peters, have you ever covered SSAS on the podcast before, and is it something you would do?
It's regarding pensions. It's not something we've covered, so we can perhaps do a little bit of research into it and perhaps cover that in a later date, but it's not something we've covered at the minute. But it's regarding using your pension to buy investment properties. Yeah. So we don't want to go into that in a minute, but we will cover it at a later date.
Brilliant. Well, guys, thanks ever so much for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed it. We are back next Saturday at 7 p.m, so please do tune in. You can hear us on Spotify, you can hear us on Apple iTunes, you can watch us on YouTube, and we will see you next week.
See you guys.